Hey guys, it's Megan. Welcome back to the library. A new video today. We're going to talk about the 7 books I read in the month of August. So I didn't read as many as I have been reading, but school did start back. So, I did read 7 books. 6 were audio books and 1 was like an ebook / I also had the physical copy. So I read 4 fantasy, 1 horror, 1 mystery, and then 1 that could be like a classic mystery, horror, gothic thriller. It was kind of listed as a little bit of everything. I read 2,414 pages, but I also DNF'd like 2 or 3 other books that I'll talk about later in another video. So that adds to the page count though. I read 4 new releases, which is like wild. Like they all came out this year. I read 3 books, 3 authors that were authors I'd read from before and 4 that were new to me, and 5 books were written by females and 2 by males. So I don't know why, those are just the statistics that I keep track of. Oh, and I read 4 adult books and 3 young adult books. So we're just going to go in order, and it actually works out that the first book I read in the month of August was my favorite, and it was 4 stars, which means I didn't have any 5-star reads, and I'm just going to give up on having 5-star reads this year because I've only had 1, and that was Librarian at Mount Char. So anyway, Slew Foot by Brom is my best, I guess, favorite book of the month, and it is kind of like The Crucible, the old school Arthur Miller play, if you ever had to read The Crucible, if John Proctor got his revenge at the end and he actually did sort of associate with the devil, but the devil's not really the devil, but he's a character too who has to figure out who he is, and it has to do with like pagan nature spirits. And anyway, it was so good. It's so perfect for the fall, and I even put it in my fall recommendations video. I highly recommend checking out Brom. He's got some weird books and the artwork's kind of strange too. He also did the art, but it was really enjoyable. The next book I read was finishing out a series, or at least getting caught up on the series because it is going to continue. I read the 8th book and the newest installment in the Wayward Children series, which is Lost in the Moment and Found. I gave this one 3 stars. It just wasn't my favorite, like of all the different premises, all the different plots of the stories. Sometimes I give them like 4.5, 5 stars. Others I've given like 2 stars. The series is honestly kind of all over the place for me. It seems like I only like the characters when it has to do with the Jack and Jill storyline, which is approximately every other book, I think. So I'm just like really hoping that the next book will get back to like the main characters. I don't like it when we meet these new characters and they're not in like fun worlds basically, or when they're at the school like what's her name, the main lady that owns the boarding school, whatever her name is, when they're at her school. I actually really enjoy the plot. So anyway, this one was fine, but I cannot wait for book 9, which I think comes out in January. Next, I finally read Throne of Glass. It happened by Sarah J. Maas. I was about to give up on this author entirely because, as we know, I read ACOTAR way back in the day, and I mean, it was fine. Like, it was silly and kind of fun, but I hated the 3rd book, and then that little novella was really, really weird. I tried the Crescent City series, wasn't into that at all, DNF'd it. It just felt very young, even though it was supposed to be adult, so maybe if I went into it pretending like it was young adult, I would have liked it better. I don't know, because I do like urban fantasy like a lot, since, I mean, Dresden Files is like one of my favorite all-time series. Anyway, Throne of Glass, though, is more like high fantasy. I do know that this author wrote this when she was younger, and that they say the series gets better and better. So I went in with very low expectations, and I was pleasantly surprised. I think I gave it 3.5 stars. Let me see. I gave it 3.5 stars because it did exceed my expectations, and I'm going to continue the series. Next, I read a novella, and that was Thornedge by T. Kingfisher, because I pretty much read now everything this author puts out because I've really enjoyed a couple of her books, but then a couple of her books I was like kind of meh on. I think I've read like 4 of them now, or maybe even 5, I don't know, but this one was fine. I think I also gave it 3 stars. It's sort of a retelling of Sleeping Beauty, but like just it's really different than Sleeping Beauty, and I actually read it the day it came out. I was the first person apparently at my library who'd reserved the audiobook, and I got it like at midnight on the day it came out, so that was pretty cool. And I pretty much read it, I think, in like 1 or 2 days because it's really, really short. It was fine, not very memorable. Honestly, if I was going to read a retelling of something like Snow White or Sleeping Beauty, I would read this what's it called? Sleeper and the Spindle by Neil Gaiman. I actually enjoyed that one better, and I liked all the illustrations in that one. Next was my most disappointing read of the whole time because I thought that it was going to be so much better than it was, and that is a book that I gave 2 stars to. Why did I even finish it? I don't know. I think I kept hoping it was going to get better, and it never did, so I just powered through. That is Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone by Benjamin Stevenson. This is an adult mystery, and the premise sounded so good, and Kayla from Books and Lala, who's one of my favorite booktubers, everybody knows her, gave this book 5 stars, so I had such high hopes. It was so boring, and it's really not about how everybody in his family has killed someone. It's about one mystery, one person that's killed somebody, and it's just not that interesting. And yes, there were some funny moments, and like the writing style was kind of witty, but I just didn't care about the plot. Okay, then I read my physical book that took me like the entire month to read, and that was Silver in the Bone by Alexandra Bracken. This one was also disappointing because, well, I had like low expectations going in. I was like, young adult fantasy based on King Arthur, Knights of the Round Table. That sounds terrible because I don't like young adult fantasy, especially I tried Legendborn, same thing, King Arthur type story, didn't like it. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna try this one. The first like third of the book was so good. I actually really liked the part that was set in the real world before they went to Avalon for the rest of the book. And I know I've seen some Goodreads reviews where people dislike that part of the book, but I actually love the first part. Then about a third of the way through, they go to Avalon for the whole rest of the story, and it's so slow paced. Like it really bogs down and nothing happens for a good third of the book in the middle. And you're getting introduced to all these new characters, but honestly, I didn't care about any of them. I didn't feel like they had very distinct personalities. And it's just such a tonal shift from the first third of the book that it just made no sense to me. So I was just super disappointed in the middle. It did pick up a little bit at the end and left off with a little cliffhanger, but I don't think it's enough for me to continue the series. I would try maybe another book by this author since I really enjoyed her writing. That might have been my favorite part of the book, was just the writing itself. I thought was really good. There were a lot of kind of funny moments and nice similes and metaphors, and I just thought she was a great writer. So I think I might try Lore by her, which I've heard pretty bad things about, but maybe I'll try that one and just see how it goes. The final book that I did actually finish, I'm in the middle of a couple more, but I did finish Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier, and this, of course, is a classic. This is the one that I considered a classic mystery, gothic, romance, historical thriller. It's really all those different genres. Everybody's read Rebecca. Oh, not everybody, but all of my booktubers I follow have been reading it, and I was like, okay, it's around, fall time. I feel like the vibes are right. I will try reading this book. The pacing is so ridiculous in this book. It's really, well, I listened to the audio, so I can tell you, it was 73%. 73% of this book, nothing happens. Then the last 27%, everything happens. It's like breakneck speed to the end of the book. If it had been paced a little bit better and maybe the big reveal, the big twist happened halfway through the book, it would have been a little more understandable that like, oh, okay, now we can actually follow up and have all these other things happen, or okay, we can have a little backstory at the beginning. But no, the pacing was so off in this book, and that's the main reason that I only gave it 3 stars. It was really hard to rate because I did like the ending and I liked the twist and everything. It just came too late for me. So those are all the books I read in August. Let me know down below if you guys have read any of those books, what you thought, if you agreed, and I will see you again soon. Bye.